some people are just stuck in their ways or their ways of teaching. So it was a fight to have her accommodate me for my accommodations. I remember missing an assignment, and she didn't want to accommodate me by giving me extra time. And my good old mother, she was like, "Oh no, unacceptable."
You're listening to the Water Prairie Chronicles, a podcast that supports parents of children with disabilities by sharing the stories of individuals who have grown up with disabilities and the organizations available to help parents along the way. Stay connected with us by clicking the subscribe button and leave us a comment if you want to join in on the conversation. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Water Prairie Chronicles podcast. We appreciate you joining us today, and we have a special guest with us today, Kenya. And now I'm going to say your name wrong because I didn't ask you ahead of time how to pronounce it. I want to say Gradnigo, but I think I'm completely wrong. So how do you say your last name?
No, that is the closest anyone has ever gotten it, so you got it.
Well, welcome to the Water Prairie Chronicles.
Thank you.
I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about yourself, and please say your name correctly so that we can actually hear it, and then we'll go into the interview.
Okay, great. Hello everyone. My name is Kenya Gradnigo. I am from Louisiana. I'm currently residing in Lafayette, Louisiana. I am 25 years old, and I recently just graduated with my master's in social work. Just started a new job as a social worker. And so far, I am just happy and excited to be here to tell my story once again. And a little bit of family background. I come from a close-knit family. I have one older sister. My parents are in the education field. My mom's a speech language pathologist. My dad's a preacher, and he also works at a school as well. So, pretty much come from a family that is in social services or the healthcare field. So pretty much been keeping the tradition of continuing to serve and give back to the community.
So the reason that we had you on, a few weeks ago, we had Julie Flagler on from Project Sleep, and we talked a little bit about her path with narcolepsy. We've had my son on, who's a little bit younger than you are, and he's told his story of narcolepsy. But when I was speaking with Julie, she had shared your story with me, and I wanted to bring you on because your story is a little bit different from theirs, and that you were much younger when you were diagnosed. So could you tell us, when were you first diagnosed with narcolepsy?
I was about 9 years old, and my mom actually was the one who noticed something wasn't right, because I would always get notes home from school from my teachers saying that Kenya is constantly falling asleep in class. Her grades started to fall and drop, and I wasn't engaging in class. So my mom was like, okay, this is not my child. Something is not right. Let me go see what I can do. So she actually did research, and at the time, narcolepsy was not heard of at all. So it was kind of hard to find a doctor or a sleep specialist to even do testing to see, okay, what is the issue is going on. So I went to a sleep specialist, and I did a sleep study. And at that moment, that's when everything all came together. And it's like, yeah, it's narcolepsy. And I was like, being 9 years old, like, narco who? What is it?
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't even pronounce it. So I was like, I don't even know what that is. So my doctor, he really explained to my mom what it was and the risk. And unfortunately, at the time, there wasn't medication, because I was so young, that was approved by the FDA that would assist with the excessive daytime sleepiness. So I was not on medication for a few months, actually, because of there weren't any medications. Everything was more for adults at the time. So in the next year, I was on a field trip at a planetarium, and I kind of had a little panic attack, and my teachers took me outside and to calm down, get some fresh air, and I was on a swing set, and I just remember blacking out. Like, I don't know what happened, just completely blacked out. When I came through, everyone was standing around me, wondering what happened. My mom was there, so they took me to the hospital, did more tests, and I was diagnosed with cataplexy. So the doctors pretty much were saying, cataplexy is brought on by strong emotions, laughter, anger, fear even. So me being at the planetarium triggered that, and that's what caused my cataplexy. So for about 15 years now, I've been diagnosed with narcolepsy with cataplexy.
That's a lot to take on as a young child.
Yes.
The Yeah, let's go back. I want to break some of that down. But the sleep specialist that you saw, what field of study was he in? Was he psychology or neurology? Do you remember that first doctor?
Yes, he's actually a pulmonologist, a lung doctor, but he has a certification in sleep disorders. So it kind of went hand in hand for him as far as those who have like sleep apnea or people who have insomnia. So and he was the first and only doctor at the time in Opelousas that specialized in sleep. So I looked up there because I hear a lot of times a lot of patients who have narcolepsy don't have doctors, or it's hard to find one in their area. So we was very lucky to have him be in our area, and still is practicing in our area.
When I commend your mom, because I know in our experience, once we found out Christopher was around 15 when he was diagnosed, I know the symptoms have been there for years, but he had an ADHD diagnosis. So a lot of it was just, he wasn't focused. He wasn't, able to stay up on things. So it was a little clouded by that. And then you also have that strong-willed child that's just going through changes like 9 and 10. Okay, you've got a change in life happening during that time. And then middle school. So a lot of our kids that may have narcolepsy are going a long time before anyone even picks up on that it's beyond just being a willful child or being a sleep-deprived teenager, things like that. So I really commend your mom for even recognizing what questions to start asking with it.
Yes, my mom, she is awesome, and she's always that parent that she notices quickly, like my children are not acting normal. Same with my sister, she has a disability as well, and she wants to make sure that we got the best through schools, high school, junior high school, even college, and even still to this day at work, we are grown adults, and she is still like, make sure you do this and make sure you do that. I'm like, yes, ma'am, I'm on it. Thank you.
And I think she represents the parents who are listening to this podcast.
Yes.
Because the whole reason that we're offering this is to try to give parents some tools to hear a story of someone else who's been through that same path that their child is facing right now, and to know what questions to be asking. So they're listening because they're already looking for that information. So your mom is representing all of these parents who are listening right now. I always love hearing about that, because a lot of us as parents, we stumble on our path. We ask questions, but we run into answers that aren't the right answer, and sometimes we take that answer as what it is. And so it takes some time sometimes to find that right path for our child, and to be able to help encourage them to be the person that they were intended to be. So for you at 9 and 10, all right, so you couldn't even pronounce narcolepsy, much less really comprehend what was happening back then. And this is before the cataplexy. How did you, did you go on to an IEP at that point, or a 504 plan? How did they accommodate for the extra sleepiness that was happening?
Yes, so I had an IEP plan all the way up into college, actually. So my mom, since she has been in the school system for years, she already kind of knew how that worked as far as getting accommodations. So what I had to do when I was in elementary school, particularly because that's when I was first diagnosed, it was kind of hard to adjust for me being a young student at the time, because I was always the student that wanted to sit in the back and just stay to myself. And with the accommodations, I had to be in the front of the class, and if I was
In the front row.
asleep, I had to stand up, and I was like, this is embarrassing. But I'm thankful that I went through it because it taught me so much. Even to this day, I still have instilled some of those practices, like I have to get up and walk around just so I won't fall asleep. But my IEP plan was pretty much personalized to what I wanted, even though my mom at the time was like, she needs this, this, and this. But they made sure, and my mom made sure that it was something that I wanted. So, and it was tough because being young, I wasn't as social because of my narcolepsy. I wanted to stay home and just sleep. I didn't want to do any homework. I'd rather just sleep instead of eating or even being interactive with my peers. So my IEP plan had extended time on homework assignments. I had to take my medication at a certain time every morning when I did get on medicine. Also assigned seating. I had a recorder in case I did fall asleep in class. I could listen to the recorder whenever I needed to go back. And I had kind of extra help with other students who knew or understood my condition. I had friends that would help me, or like, hey, make sure you do this, this, and this, or even note takers, if you will. That was more towards college note takers that would take notes for me in case I needed it. Because there was times I was falling asleep taking notes, and I'm looking at it like, what is this and what does it say? So it became very helpful for me, and I'm thankful for that. And I suggest to anyone, do not be afraid to ask for those accommodations, that extra time. Do what you have to do, because it is hard trying to go through school and even work life and adult life without any kind of accommodations.
So you talked about having friends back in elementary school who understood. So that's a blessing in itself that your friends understood. Do you remember when you first tried to explain to them? Like, did they understand? Did they show compassion, or was that hard to explain at first?
It was very hard to explain at first. It took me a long time to actually even tell them. They just knew I had a sleep disorder. I've actually shared recently, and I don't think a lot of people knew that until I recently shared. Throughout elementary and middle school, I had a nickname, Sleeping Beauty, because I used to do pageants a lot when I was younger. And I used to model as well throughout my teenage and young adult life. So Sleeping Beauty was my nickname, and actually one of my elementary school teachers gave it to me. So
oh no.
Yeah. I mean, he was a jokester. It was no harm intended from him, but it kind of stuck. So. And it was a good way to get me engaged as well, because he'd be like, Sleeping Beauty, wake up, I see you falling asleep, I see you dozing off. So it was a little fun in it. But what a lot of people or my friends didn't know was that I kind of fell into a depression because I didn't want to be engaged. I didn't want to hang out with friends. They did not understand what narcolepsy was. And my mom actually had to tell them, like, hey, narcolepsy is a sleep disorder, and this happens. If she doesn't take her medicine, she could tend to fall asleep. I could be very groggy if I don't get enough sleep. I don't want to be bothered. So, and they understood that. And I only had a good 5 friends, close friends, and still to this day, same 5 friends that are still hanging in there with me, and they understand and they know, like, hey, Kenya, we going out, or we going to eat dinner, do you want to come? And 9 times out of 10 I might say no because I want to stay home, but they understand that, or they'll come meet me, be like, okay, you need to get out the house, you need to go do something, you need to see sunlight, you need to see daylight.
Good for them.
Yeah, they really push me, and they know and they understand if I don't want to go somewhere because I'd rather stay home. They don't really force me, and it's been like that since.
when they're not offended.
Yeah, they're not offended at all. They completely understand, and they've been hanging in there for these so many years. So
That's great. So to have those friends during those middle school and high school years was invaluable, because those are tough years for the best of any kid, much less to have to explain this. So I did want to ask you, so as you got into middle school and high school, how did you ever have any teachers who didn't understand or who gave you a hard time?
oh God, yes. Unfortunately, yes.
I kind of expected that.
Yes, I actually did have one teacher in high school. She did not want to. I don't want to say she didn't want to understand, but some people are just stuck in their ways or their ways of teaching. So it was a fight to have her accommodate me for my accommodations. I remember missing an assignment, and she didn't want to accommodate me by giving me extra time. And my good old mother, she was like, "Oh no, unacceptable." So we actually,
That's what I'm thinking about.
oh yeah,
Mama's coming.
yes, ma'am. She actually we went a long time to try to because it dropped my grade. I had went from like a A to D, and it was a little bad, and it was a little embarrassing for me because I never wanted to be that student or have your mom come and have to fight for you. But I understand now as an adult that it was for good reasons, and she taught me how to advocate for myself.
Did you start advocating in high school, or was that later in college for you?
High school, around that time, I
Good.
started, when I was doing pageants, I started modeling as well, and I used that as my platform when I would travel Louisiana, even New York, or wherever I was doing a fashion show or just doing a photo shoot. A lot of people would see me and like, "Oh, you have, that sleep disorder." I'm like, "Yeah, narcolepsy." And I just started talking and telling them what it was, and, just giving them the facts about it. And they was like, "Oh God, that's so interesting." And then they start self-diagnosing all the members of the family. Like, "I wonder
Right.
who has it." And I'm like, "Well, maybe they should get tested. I don't know."
Yeah. Well, it is a rare disease, but you bring up a good point. You wonder how many people are going through their life undiagnosed,
Right.
because they don't know the right questions to ask. They just assume they're just tired all the time because they don't sleep well at night,
Right.
which is true. However, there might be a reason that they're not sleeping well at night and they're tired all the time.
Yeah. Yes.
So moving into college, so an IEP only goes through high school. I'm assuming that you transferred and worked with disability services for your college. Is that correct?
Correct. I went to Northwestern State University in Natchitoches. I started off in nursing and realized that it was not my path, only because it was a lot, because I was adjusting with medication as well at that time. I had 8 o'clock classes and I had to take certain medicines at certain times, and the time frames were conflicting, and I started to drop like classes, and I was tired. I didn't want to go to class, and it was just a lot on my plate. I wound up taking some time off from school, and my advisor told me, she's like, "Hey, either you sit out for 3 years or take up another career path, a major." And I was like, "I don't want to take off for 3 years, so I'm gonna switch to psychology." I had a lot of credits towards that, and the Office of Disability, they really were very helpful. Has the similar accommodations to what I had in high school and elementary, as far as extended time on assignments, assigned seating, note takers, sitting in a secluded area for testing if I wanted to take a test with the class, or if I wanted to go in another place where there was more quiet and less distractions and less people. I could have did that, and I used it to my advantage, and I do not regret it at all. One of my accommodations was as well in college was I had first pick on my dorm. I had to be on the bottom floor.
Oh.
And instead of 4 people in the room, it was 2 of us at times, me and my roommate. And I had the same roommate throughout all 4 years of college, which was very helpful as well because she knew
Nice.
my condition and understood what could happen if I had a cataplectic episode.
Right. So were you on the ground floor because of the cataplexy or because of sleeping too deeply during the night?
Because of the cataplexy. I also have a handicap sticker because of the cataplexy as well. And a lot of people are like, how did you get that? Like, when you think of disability, most people think of something physical. And to me, I kind of get tired of explaining that portion of it for people who don't understand. But I do encourage, if you want, for those who want to get a handicap sticker, to talk to your doctor and then go to your local DMV because it does come in handy, especially for me since I was on a wide campus and walking back and forth. I just never knew what could have happened. So driving for me on campus was very beneficial.
So driving brings up a question that I wasn't thinking about earlier, but do you have any special note on your license or anything that you have narcolepsy? Did you have to do any type of medical approvals?
No, actually I didn't, just the handicap sticker. And it's rare that officer or someone would ask, hey, why? Well, I only had one. It happened to me once. An officer asked me like, hey, you parked in handicap, but you're not handicapped. I'm like, yeah, I have narcolepsy with cataplexy, and it's like, oh wow, what is that? It sparks up a conversation in the parking lot, but it's beneficial. So no, I haven't. I don't have anything on my license or anything saying that I have narcolepsy.
Do you have any accommodations that you use at work right now?
I currently do not, only because I choose not to. I'm a firm believer of challenging myself, and that's how I know I could get better. Like, I know what my limits are. And for me, being active is one of my biggest things that I'm like a stickler about, because that's how I got through most of my high school and college days. I was always active, doing something, whether it was playing basketball, running track, taekwondo, dancing, or just going to the park, just walking, whatever it was. I always want to be active, because if I'm just sitting around at home, then that's when the sleepiness is going to really hit me. So
Right.
at my job, I do a lot of walking around, and a lot of the patients that I work with and their personalities are just amazing, and they keep me motivated and moving, and just pretty much being a teacher is what I look at it as. I'm constantly moving and doing things on the board and just on the go, always on the go. My watch stays going off because of my movement. Like, yeah, you closed your ring for today. So, and that's one of the benefits of my job, what I do. So, I really don't have any accommodations at work, but if I wanted to have some, I'm pretty sure my job would accommodate me.
Did you, whenever you apply for jobs, do you disclose it right away or do you wait?
Yes, I do disclose right away. And most people now in the health field, they know what narcolepsy is or have an idea of what it is. So they're like, oh yeah, if you need an extra break or if you need caffeine, let us know. We'll have it on deck for you. And so yeah, they're mostly understanding about that. And my coworkers, they tend to check in on me, and they always ask, hey, you want some caffeine? You need a Coke? You need something to snack on? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I got it. Or if I'm just sitting there kind of just dazing off, they're like, are you okay? Are you good? I'm like, yeah, just in deep thought. So, yeah.
Well, sometimes people just get tired too,
Yes.
and that is okay.
Yes.
But I'm glad to hear that you're surrounded by so much support. That's the ideal situation. I mean, it may get a little irritating at times if you hear too many people asking if you're okay, but at least if you need some help, there are people around you who can come and jump for you.
Yes.
Now we mentioned when you were first diagnosed, you were too young to take medication, and a lot of the stimulant medications aren't approved until age 18. We faced that with my son as well. Do you mind talking about the medications that you tried? We don't need to talk about the
Right.
name, but just the types of medications.
Yes.
So Yeah, so go ahead and tell us kind of what your journey's been on that.
I have pretty much been on every medication I've tried that was pretty much either just coming out or new medications for narcolepsy, especially with cataplexy. My doctor mostly focuses on trying to, I don't want to say cure, but pay attention more towards the cataplexy more than the narcolepsy part, because that is more of the danger in my case. So I had stimulants. I've been on stimulants before, antidepressants, central nervous system depressants. Um, uh, it was so many trial and error for me because, of course, with side effects and everything, you have to figure out what works best for you. And then me being at work, we don't want anything to overlap over to the next day when I still feel sleepy because I would have to drive. Or when I was in school, I used to drive in my master's program back and forth, and I would be on the road for about almost an hour, 2 days out the week, driving back and forth. So I had to make sure that whatever medicine I was taking at night didn't too much overlap over to the next day when I had to be up for 6 o'clock to go to work. Yeah, I've been on pretty much almost every medication out there from stimulants, depressants, antidepressants. And right now, I'm happy to say that I'm not on any medications because I figured out what works best for me, and that's just being active.
How do you start your day? How do you get yourself up to get the day started?
So it depends on actually how I did the day before, but normally I try to be up for 7:30 ish. I have several alarm clocks, so that is not uncommon. I have several alarm clocks because I'm the type of person. 5 more minutes is 5 more minutes. I need 5 more minutes just to wake up. So I get up and I just sit on the edge of the bed just to try to wake myself up, wake my body up. And then I just do normal morning routines. I try to be back home for at least 9. That way I'm in the bed by 10. But that's not always the case because sometimes I'm in the bed at 10, but I'm still up watching TV. And then I might not fall asleep till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. But I don't feel tired because I had a good day, if that makes sense.
Right.
It wasn't
Right. No, I
wasted.
understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're talking about waking up in the morning and sitting up. Do you ever have moments where time has passed and you don't know that it's passed because you go into more of an unintentional sleep?
Yes, and a lot of times with me, it's the vivid dreams that I have, or just my doctor. Last I spoke with my doctor, he was like, you could be having cataplexy in your sleep and you don't even know it. So that kind of scared me a little bit. I was like, oh wow, okay. So I actually, when I do get up and sit on the edge of the bed, sometimes in my mind I'm thinking like I'm fully awake, but other times I'm just actually still sleeping.
With the cataplexy, do you take a medicine at night that makes you go into a deeper sleep to
I
treat that? I know I've heard a few parents talking about their kids being on something like that.
Yes, I used to take a medicine, but I kind of weaned myself off of it. So when I was on it, it was 2 doses I would have to take, and I felt like it kind of broke my sleep because once I'm in a good deep sleep, I am okay. But with that certain particular medicine, you had to wake up and take a second dose, and I wasn't a fan of that portion. But as far as the cataplexy and my doctor mentioned it being happening while I was asleep, it was very scary because I could feel myself or my body just like jumping or restless legs, constantly moving, and that would be what would make me feel restless when I wake up because my body was constantly moving while I was sleeping. Now I'm awake and I'm just like groggy and just like, ugh, what happened? I didn't really get adequate sleep.
All right, so I want to move into what you're doing with Project Sleep, because you're on the board now, right?
Yes.
You're very young to be a board member. I have to tell you that to begin with. So how did that come into being?
So I've been a part of Project Sleep since 2015. I was a scholarship recipient, and ever since then, that's when I felt like, and I knew that narcolepsy had their own little community, and I was like, I get to be a part of something. So that was my first engagement and experience with Project Sleep was with the scholarship. And ever since then, Julie and I have been on in contact with each other constantly. Every year for the when they do the scholarships, we would do a Zoom call with the recipients, past recipients and current recipients, just kind of giving them accommodations and just words of encouragement as they continue their college careers or as they start their college journeys. Myself and another recipient had did a narcolepsy nerd alert called Navigating College with Narcolepsy. And we did a toolkit as well where we told our stories about our separate journeys throughout school and the kind of accommodations that we had throughout school and what accommodations were offered at our schools and how you can ask for accommodations at your school. And I did a lot of webinars and Zoom calls with Project Sleep, representing them, just telling my story and my journey and being as young as I was when I was first diagnosed has been an awesome experience, and I hope to continue. And I will continue regardless if I'm on the board or not on the board. Julie will not get rid of me.
Well, you mentioned the Nerd Alert and the toolkit. I want to link that in the show notes. So we'll because I know that's on the Project Sleep website, but we can pull that out. So if you're listening, check the show notes for the audio podcast, or if you're on YouTube, look in the description below, and we'll put the links there. Because that way, if anyone's at that stage or heading toward college, they can see what you put together for that too. And then, so this is being released in September of 2022. This year, World Narcolepsy Day is what day?
September 22nd.
22nd. So if you are not aware of it, coming up soon if you're listening to this when it first came out. If not, watch for it next September. Is it always on the 22nd, or does it change from year to year?
It's always on the 22nd.
Okay, so September 22nd is always World Narcolepsy Day. And that's world, that's not just U.S.
Correct. All over the world.
And Project Sleep has a sleep-in? Is that what they call it every year?
Yes. It's not the same date as World Narcolepsy Day. It kind of just varies, and we try to keep it around the same time, like a week of events, so it could lead up to World Narcolepsy Day. So it's very fun because we do like little virtuals, little Zoom calls. You could be comfortable in your pajamas. It's so fun to see everyone around the world just participate and get together and just celebrate narcolepsy, and not just narcolepsy, any sleep disorder.
Right. Right. So if you have sleep apnea, or what are some of the are there others besides narcolepsy and sleep apnea?
Yes, there is idiopathic hypersomnia, insomnia, narcolepsy with cataplexy, narcolepsy without cataplexy, sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome. It's a variety.
Okay. So anyone listening may have any experience with any of those things, and the sleep-in is for you.
Yes.
We'll link the Project Sleep website as well, so that anyone listening can kind of look in and see what else is going on. But I came across that last year when I was first starting to think about putting the podcast together, and I thought it was really just kind of a fun situation as far as, you know, appreciating sleep, but recognizing that there are those around the world that struggle with sleep issues, that it's beyond their control, but there are some medical helps that can be there to help them get a better night's sleep and to have a better quality day because of it.
Yes.
So fun. Is there anything else that you're doing with Project Sleep right now?
Currently, just working with what we call our impact report. So just pretty much staying on top of those who either just recently got diagnosed with any sleep disorder or scholarship recipients. Just pretty much staying up to date with members of our organization or even people who not a part of the organization. I have talked to a lot of people who just found out about Project Sleep or just got diagnosed and they want to know how to get involved or what they can do to better their living situations or accommodate themselves at work or at school. So that's pretty much where I am. Of course, I want to dibble and dabble in everything, but got to give people opportunity too.
Right. I did want to ask you too, the scholarship. What is the name of the scholarship?
Jack and Julie Narcolepsy Scholarship.
Jack and Julie. And that's given to graduating high school students that are going into college for the first time. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I noticed there was a big group of recipients this year. It's not just one. And a lot of times when you apply for a scholarship, it's just one person. You're awarding quite a few out each year for that.
Yes, every year is getting bigger and bigger, and I'm so glad because that means that we are doing what we can to get the word out, and more people are seeing it, they're hearing it, and they want to be involved. So I'm so excited. So hopefully next year we could give out more scholarships.
Right. Yeah, we weren't aware of it at the time. We found that later, but I was excited to see that there was one, because you have different disabilities that are represented in different areas. But again, narcolepsy is a rare disorder still, and so the awareness is not there yet. But there are a lot of students out there who are struggling, and just that little bit of encouragement to get them started in college, I think is a great way to just to let them know they're not by themselves out there as they get started going off away from home for the first time.
Yes.
And so I was thrilled to see that and when I say a lot, listeners, it's not just 5. It was like a huge group of kids.
Yes.
Who were all being awarded this year. So without further ado, we're going to go into our speed round. For those who are listening, if you haven't heard one of our interviews before, all of our guests go through what we call a speed round. And it's a way for us to get to know our guest in a different way other than what we are officially interviewing them for. So the questions have absolutely nothing to do with the interview at all. But it's kind of fun hearing the answers and seeing how, even though we're interviewing all of our guests for different reasons, we have a lot of similarities once we get into these likes and dislikes. So it's a series of 10 questions. There's not really a speed side to it. You can take as long as you need to answer them. But the first 3 are open-ended questions where you answer whatever you want, and then the last 7 are either or. I'll give you two words or phrases, and you'll just choose one or the other. Or you can always say neither or both. So there really isn't a right or a wrong on any of this. So are you ready?
Yes.
All right, so the first question, what's your favorite color?
Blue.
And what's the last book that you read?
A Stephen King book. I love Stephen King, so any Stephen King book, I am in it.
Excellent. And what's your favorite holiday?
I would have to say Christmas, close to my birthday.
Oh, well, that's even more so. As long as you're getting to celebrate your birthday and Christmas separately.
Oh, yes.
Good. All right, so now for the either or questions. Cake or ice cream?
Ice cream.
Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Ocean or mountains?
Both.
Okay. Winter or summer?
Winter.
Watch a movie or read a book?
Both.
Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Harry Potter.
And Twitter or Instagram?
Instagram.
So Kenya, we appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story with us, helping us to understand narcolepsy a little bit better and giving us a good glimpse of childhood narcolepsy, which we have not had a chance to see before. So thank you for spending that time with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed it, and hopefully I will be invited back.
This podcast is made possible by support from our listeners. we want to give a shout out to our superfan, Praveen S. If you want to help offset the cost of producing the Water Prairie Chronicles, become a supporter at buymeacoffee.com/waterprairie.
Leave a review about the podcast to make it easier for others to find it. And thanks for your support. You've been listening to the Water Prairie Chronicles. Any resources mentioned during this episode will be posted in the description. If you're interested in joining us as a guest, contact us through the links in the description below. Be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. We appreciate your support as we build this resource. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week for a new episode.